Greetings, friends, family, allies, and enemies. I do not know why, but the intro was not coming up, even though I could hear it. So we're just gonna bypass the intro because I don't have a lot of time tonight. Uh, Greetings to Brother Jarake. Brother Jarake, if you could let me know whether or not you can hear me, I appreciate it. And apparently, I'm just gonna get straight to the point. Tonight's discussion will be, as soon as I get myself together, um, how in the world America got themselves into this mess. Thank you, good brother. The mess in Iran. And the reason I wanted to talk about this because people just don't know what's going on, don't know history, don't know anything other than what they hear from. And I was telling someone that I was looking at the local news and they weren't covering anything. They were just basically parroting whatever America says, and that was that. And so I said, let me let people know how in the world all this started. So that's what I'm gonna do in the next hour and a half. So I want to get started here with the whole controversy around Mohammed Mossadegh. And then go from there. I did have another article that I wanted to deal with, but now all of a sudden I don't actually see it. So the whole thing is, if we go back to, we'll just start in 1953, right? Mohammed Mossadegh was the ruler of Iran, right? Now, mind you, of course, this is a time with colonialism was still going on in Africa and other places around the world. So this is, I believe this is before even the Bangdun conference, where a lot of countries that were being colonized decided that they need to come together and see how they can get free, right? So what basically, this is what happened. Mohammed Mossadegh decided, hey, we have oil. We're kind of being exploited for our oil, and we want to control our own resources. And thus, anybody that's read Diary of Economic Hitman, which we have referred to at this point, seemingly ad nauseum, understand how this goes. He was removed from office. So I'm gonna read this article and then we'll just take it from there. It says Mohammed Mossadegh became prime minister of Iran in 1951. An ardent nationalist, he rose to power by challenging Great Britain's dominance of Iran's economy and politics. A month before becoming prime minister, Mossadegh led the effort by the Iranian Majlis, which is the parliament, to nationalize the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which the British government controlled at the time. Rather than seek compromise with Tehran, London sought to reverse the law by crippling Iran's oil exports, the main source of their government revenue. President Harry S. Truman rejected the British efforts to enlist the United States in pressuring Iran to return ownership of the AIOC to Britain. British arguments that Mossadegh was destabilizing Iran found a more friendly audience when Dwight D. Eisenhower became president. Now, if I remember correctly, and I'm gonna need somebody to check this for me, was it not? Which one was it? Was it Truman or Eisenhower? Which one was it that warned about the military industrial complex and their affairs and taking over the United States are doing things behind the people's back. One of these two gentlemen, I can't remember if I don't think it was Eisenhower. I do think it was true, but I'm not 100% sure. One of them, brother, you say it was Eisenhower? Okay. But this what makes it even more ridiculous, right? He backed up this coup, right? So it says, fearing that a communist takeover of Iran was increasingly likely, Eisenhower authorized Operation Ajax to oust Mossadegh. The coup came in August 1953. Its success encouraged subsequent U.S. efforts to destabilize governments Washington disliked, and Iranian nationalists used the coup to fuel anti-Americanism in Iran. Shah historians rank the support for Mossadegh's overthrow as the fourth worst U.S. foreign policy decision. Excuse me. Now, here's a key part of this. It says that this, because they were successful, this basically became kind of U.S. policy. You don't like a ruler. Now, mind you, this is saying if you don't like a ruler who's ruling in their own country, right? Not somebody that's doing something that affects the United States, somebody that's ruling in their own country. If you don't like them, then you overthrow the person and you move on. And now, mind you, we can think about all the situations that happened in Africa, and we can look at Ghana, for example, right? You know, with Ghana, the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana had taken place. If this didn't work, or we can look at what happened to Patrice Lumumba. Would the United States have supported that if this didn't work? So we see, if we really study history, how things are interconnected, and that's the reason why we study history. Brother Jarake says that, put this up, President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned of the military-industrial complex in his farewell address on January 17, 1961. Yes, it's very interesting that you can say that, but you support overthrow of a sovereign nation, right? So let's get back to the article. And it says, Iran emerged from World War II politically and economically weakened. Great Britain and the Soviet Union invaded the country in 1941 and ousted its ruler, Reza Khan, who had seized the Peacock throne in a coup 16 years earlier. So I guess that would have been in 1925. London and Moscow feared that the Shah, an unabashed admirer of Adolf Hitler, would block one of the main avenues for supplying the Soviets in the wake of Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union. Now, here is something that is important to note that people just forget. The Soviet Union was largely a creation of Jewish, a group of Jewish people who overthrew the emperor of Russia right before that, and of course they slaughtered the whole family. Russia was a Christian nation. They basically banned religion and took over, and so in essence, the Soviet Union was like a pre-Israel type entity, right? So, in essence, what we're seeing is that the Zionists were interfering in the affairs of Iran before Israel even existed, right? Now, let's get back to this. The new Shah was his 22-year-old son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. That political disruption, coupled with poor harvests, impoverished the country. As elsewhere in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, nationalism soared in Iran after the war ended. And many historians and scholars believe that because of the damage that World War II did to Europe, it weakened most of Europe, and that is really what was the precursor to the uprisings in the colonial world that allowed a lot of the colonial countries to get their freedom in the subsequent years, the subsequent 10-year period, because the United States basically paid to rebuild Europe. Now, back to the article. It says Mohammad Mossadegh became the champion of these aspirations of liberation, right? A descendant of Persian royalty who had been educated in Europe, he has served as Iran's finance minister for more than 20 years. 29 years old he had become when he became prime minister. He sought to reclaim Iran's independence and expand the power of the Majlis. The former meant confronting Britain, the latter meant confronting the Shah. You see a picture. This is Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi speaking in Tehran in 1950. Nationalization of the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. The main target of Mossadegh's economic ambitions was the AIOC. Britain owned a majority position in the company, which had a monopoly on Iran's oil industry. The AIOC benefited from a lopsided deal it imposed on Iran and sustained with illicit payoffs to leading Iranians. Man, all of this should be familiar to Black people around the world, because this is how they controlled us. This is straight out of the Diary of an Economic Hitman playbook. It says, in theory, Iran receives 16%. 16%. This like a record contract of the company's profits. The actual percentage was far lower. The AIOC never let Iran see the books, so they don't know how they were getting ripped off. Then Mossadegh agreed to become prime minister in 1951 only if the Majlis nationalized the oil industry. It did so unanimously. Britain, however, contested the decision, even though it had nationalized its own coal and steel industries. That other shop. Self-image and self-interest both played a part in the decision to reject compromise. Britain was clinging to a global empire in steep decline and feared that any concessions would undermine its influence elsewhere in the Middle East. Meanwhile, the AIOC's profits helped finance the British government. Unwilling to back down, London blockaded Iranian oil exports and persuaded other Western powers to stay on the sidelines. Iran's oil exports plunged, wreaking havoc on its economy. Now it says the quote-unquote communist threat, which has been used as an excuse to exploit, demonize, dehumanize, and destroy people for the greater half of the 20th century around the world. It says Britain wanted U.S. support for its effort to squeeze Iran. Truman declined, however, and dismissed British proposals to invade Iran and to force Mossadegh's ouster. Truman instead tried to mediate the dispute. He sent envoys to Tehran and even hosted Mossadegh in Washington in a bid to find a solution. Nothing came of these efforts, in large part because Mossadegh opposed any British involvement in Iran's oil industry. Again, you cannot be sovereign if you cannot control your economy, right? But here's what we have learned in the modern context. You also cannot be sovereign if you do not have the military power to defend yourself from invaders and colonizers. It's really that simple. So this is a lesson that all so-called third world or whatever they call them now, nations need to learn. Now, it says in October 1952, after learning that London was seeking to orchestrate a coup against him, Mossadegh broke diplomatic relations with Britain and expelled all British diplomats. The 1952 presidential election gave London another opportunity to win U.S. support for ousting Mossadegh. With the Soviets dominating Eastern Europe, Mao Zedong in power in China, and U.S. troops fighting communism in Korea, Eisenhower pledged to roll back communism. His choice for Secretary of State, John Foster Dulles, oh boy, a lot of shenanigans with that guy, intended to put that pledge into practice. Understanding the mood in Washington, British diplomats argued that Mossadegh was creating an opening for communists to seize power. The prime minister inadvertently buttressed that argument by pressing the Majlis to give him emergency governing powers, telling U.S. diplomats that a revolution was imminent and threatening to turn to Moscow unless Washington provided more aid to Iran. Who will? Now, it says, Dulles was convinced by what he heard, even though Mossadegh had excluded communists from his government, and it was the British embargo that had damaged Iran's economy and roiled its politics. Eisenhower was initially skeptical, saying in March 1953 that Mossadegh was the only hope for the West and Iran. Eisenhower's opposition faded, however, as Mossadegh rejected compromise proposals on the AIOC, and Iranians took to the streets to protest economic hardship and Mossadegh's pursuit of emergency powers. Worried that Iran's oil might be lost permanently to the West, in June, Eisenhower approved a clandestine Anglo-U.S. effort to overthrow Mossadegh. Allen Dulles, the director of the CIA, and John Foster Dulles' younger brother, oversaw the planning of Operation Ajax, a covert campaign to inflame Iranian anger at Mossadegh by paying journalists, mullahs, and politicians to attack him as corrupt and power-hungry. At the same time, street gangs would be paid to attack public figures, increasing instability and fueling suspicions that Mossadegh was attacking his critics. Then paid demonstrators would march on the Majlis to demand his ouster. Power would be transferred to General Fazlullah Zahedi, who had served in Mossadegh's government before a mutual falling out. Now let's stop right here. Here's what's interesting about this. What's interesting about this is literally what they tried to do again recently with instead of instead of the US and Britain, this is what Israel did. Israel and the United States. They went and found people and paid people off and had these scripted protests, some of them with people who were actually Mossad, and they paid people to make the protests violent so that the police would attack the protesters, and then they said that Iran was attacking its own citizens. But most of the people that were there attacking were Mossad and people from there were some people, of course, who were Iranian, and then there were some outside people masquerading. So literally, they just do the same thing over and over and over. And we see they pulled this back in the 50s, and they tried to bring up the same thing, 70 years later, right? The same playbook. So it just goes to show that they try the same tricks over and over, especially if they work. This time, of course, it did not work, but it did work in the 1950s. Now let's get back to the article, because I do not have a lot of time, so I do need to kind of speed up. But anyway, now Operation Ajax. Kermit Roosevelt, a grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt, ran Operation Ajax on the ground in Iran. He encountered an immediate problem. The plan hinged on the Shah firing Mossadegh, but the Shah balked. Mossadegh had resigned his post a year earlier because the Shah opposed his efforts to curtail royal power. Crowds poured the streets demanding Mossadegh's reinstatement. The Shah complied. He feared that firing Mossadegh now would mean his ouster. So he was scared, right? Meanwhile, after learning in July that the members of the Majlis had been bribed to vote against him, Mossadegh called for a national referendum to endorse his government. A clearly rigged vote gave him 99.4% support. Okay, everybody playing dirty. Under intense pressure from U.S. officials, the Shah agreed to fire Mossadegh and appoint Zahedi in his place. Mossadegh, however, refused to step aside when he was told of his firing on August 15th, and instead informed the country that he had foiled a coup. Operation Ajax appeared to have failed. The Shah fled the country. Zahedi went into hiding, and the CIA directed Roosevelt to leave Iran. But over the next 4 days, the tide turned. Whether because Roosevelt paid protesters or because ordinary Iranians became alarmed that Mossadegh was seeking to end the monarchy, public sentiment and military support turned against the prime minister. His premiership was over. The Shah solidified his control over Iran in the wake of Mossadegh's ouster. He had Mossadegh tried and convicted of treason. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, followed by life under house arrest. One of Mossadegh's closest advisors was executed, as were more than a dozen military officers and students allied with the government. Zahedi, who shared Mossadegh's view that Iran should have a constitutional monarchy with limited powers, lasted only 2 years as prime minister before losing the power struggle to the Shah. The once indecisive ruler would become an autocrat who would be deposed in the 1979 revolution, which was 25 years later. Mossadegh's ouster did not produce the outcome British officials anticipated. The Eisenhower administration rejected the idea that the AIOC, renamed British Petroleum, aka BP, would resume its monopoly over Iran's oil production. Instead, the United States forced Britain to accept an agreement under which control of the new National Iranian Oil Company was shared between the US, Britain, and European firms. They would split the profits 50-50 with Iran. I ain't gonna lie, that surprised me. Now it says, what is the legacy of the overthrow of Mossadegh? Mossadegh's fall partly reflected his retreat from his own democratic principles as he grabbed emergency powers and sought to stifle criticism, which he wouldn't have had to do if the economy wasn't in bad shape because of them attacking him, which again is part of the same playbook, because one of the things they've done, they put Iran under sanctions for 47 years, the United States have, hoping to destabilize the country so that they could overthrow the government. I mean, they'll run the same plays over and over until you stop them. Excuse me. Now it says, nonetheless, by intervening in Iran's internal politics, the Eisenhower administration helped to derail Iran's nascent democracy and set the country on a path to autocracy. The Eisenhower administration and its successors also took the seeming success of Operation Ajax as an endorsement for other efforts to oust the governments it disliked, most notably a year later in Guatemala. These interventions allied the United States with more dictatorships and generated considerable anti-American sentiment. That consequence became most evident a quarter of a century later, when a viciously anti-American nationalist movement swept the Shah from power and ushered in the theocratic Islamic Republic of Iran. So that is that. So that is a key part of the history between the United States and Iran, which a lot of people just don't know. And like, you know, the idea that the U.S. is this good guy and these people are these bad guys and this and that, and yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And the reality of the situation is that the United States was doing things they shouldn't have been doing, interfering in other people's affairs, overthrowing people and changing their number one export and taking some of the money that they had. They shouldn't have been taking any of the money, and it just a bunch of, for lack of a better word, shenanigans that should never have been taking place, right? Now, let's get to the next article. It says the unwritten history of Israel's alliance with the Shah's dictatorship, right? So we told you about the Shah, how he was around for 25 years, how he wasn't liked, how he was backed by the West. But of course, Israel is a key part of this whole thing because of course they are. Now it says for years, Israel maintained close political, economic, and security relations with the Shah of Iran. Newly declassified documents reveal that Israeli leaders were well aware of his murderous suppression of political opponents. So the idea that the Shah was some type of good guy, or I don't know, some type of person that the U.S. or anybody else should have been working with, we're going to apparently debunk that with this article. So let's see what it says. And I'm not sure what year this is from, but it talks about being the 40th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, during which the Ayatollahs took control of the country and brought down the Shah's absolutist monarchy. The Iranian masses, who were undergoing various ideological changes at the time, overthrew the Shah's corrupt and oppressive regime. Much has been written over the years about Israel's ties with Mohammad Reza Shah and his dictatorship. When it was convenient for the IDF censor and political and security officials in Israel, information, even secret documents from that period, was revealed to the general public. Recently, files from the foreign ministry regarding relations with Iran have been declassified and can now be found in Israel's state archives. Okay, interesting. These include more than 10,000 pages from 1953 until 1979, which were heavily censored when compared to similar files and cases of other countries. The documents expose Israel's extensive and exceptional relations with a foreign country, not only because these political and security-based relations were with a Muslim country, but because the relation with the Shah's dictatorship was strategic and central to the state of Israel from a security, economic, and political point of view. Right? It says, at the time, Israel's relations with many other countries were limited mainly to weapons sales and exchange for votes in international forum. Let's stop right here. So the Israelis were selling weapons so that they could get UN votes to back them up when they were doing whatever shenanigans they were doing at the time. Before they, brother, you got ripped off. My apologies, brother. I thought I'd let you know, but yeah, we did get cut off when we were talking. So yeah, my apologies. But yep. But I set the thing up 3 days ago. You didn't get any notification. All right. So apparently, I just saw a brother with a video. He said that YouTube not sending out notifications. So I guess he was right. So yeah, my apologies, brother. Anyway, let me get back to this. It says now, thus, for example, Israel purchased a significant portion and in some years all of its oil from the Shah's regime, while Iran used Israel as a middleman to sell its oil to other countries. The alliance over oil required that Israel and the Shah ensured the safety of shipping routes. This strengthened their partnership in the struggle against Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser. Repeated attempts to promote ideological and military alliances throughout the Middle East that were hostile to Israel and Iran. Now, for those that don't know, Nasser was an Arab nationalist, a pan-Arabist, and was vehemently hostile to the state of Israel because of the things that they did to the Palestinians, basically during the founding of Israel. So that was his motivation. Now, private and state-owned Israeli companies ranging from textiles, agriculture, electrical appliances, water, fertilizers, construction, aviation, shipping, gas, tires, even dentures have been operating extensively in Iran. In some years, Iran was one of the main destinations for Israeli exports. Meanwhile, Israeli academia also enjoyed extensive cooperation with academics in Iran. Let me pause to say this. To this day, there is a large Jewish population, and I say large, I mean relatively speaking, in Iran. Some of them go back thousands of years. Some of them go back to this time period that we're speaking of right now. Now, the Shah did have, my bad, let me go back. It says Iran de facto recognized the state of Israel in March 1950, but in light of internal pressure by those opposed to Israel and the Shah's pro-Western and pro-American policies, as well as external pressure by the Arab states, Iran avoided officially recognizing Israel. The Shah did have a secret representation in Tel Aviv beginning in 1961, and Israel had permanent representation in Tehran, which at one point became an embassy that included military attaches. Due to the sensitive nature of the agreement, Israeli representatives in Iran generally refrained from conducting relations with the Shah regime through bureaucrats in the foreign ministry and other government ministries. Instead, it carried out its business through a narrow circle of Shah loyalists and politicians, as well as top echelons of Iran's defense establishment. Sometimes those relations were conducted directly with the Shah himself and his royal court ministry. Over the years, Israel attempted to hide its involvement in the security apparatuses and suppression meted out by the Shah. Yet the Iranian public was well aware of Israel's aid to the regime. In particular was Israel's close ties with the Shah's secret service, Savak, which were responsible for political persecution, torture, and murder of the monarch's political opponents. Now let's stop right here. This seems to be a common thing. Whenever we discuss Israelis, or whenever we discuss like the Bolshevik takeover, we always get down some type of way to torture, unaliving people, and brutal tactics. And we see that to this day with how the Israelis deal with the Palestinians, and in this current war where we see the first thing that the United States did in conjunction with Israel was bomb a school with little girls, and now they're bombing civilian infrastructure, which my understanding is a war crime, but it's just like the police here in America. You know what I'm saying? Who's going to police the police? No one polices the police, so the police get away with doing all types of brutal, savage, barbaric things, right? So that's it. The macro, this is the macro of the micro, right? Now, given the breadth of relations between the two countries, I will focus on documents related to Israeli assistance to the security apparatus and suppression by the Shah's dictatorship, which would eventually lead to its downfall. These documents attest to the depth of Israeli involvement in the regime, Israel's strategic importance to this relationship, and the fear of the consequences of the Shah's fall, a concern that became palpable in the years before the end of his rule. It says stability through oppression. Israeli awareness of the Shah's oppressive policies is evident from a telegram sent on April 22nd, 1955 by the Israeli embassy in London. The telegram describes an Iranian diplomat who tells his Israeli interlocutor that the Iranian government is banning communism everywhere and that the Americans are satisfied with these actions. 8 years later, on September 9, 1963, Director of the Middle East Department at Israel's Foreign Ministry, Nathaniel Lorch, wrote that the traditional religious processions that took place that month had turned into mass demonstrations against the Shah's regime, and that the government was surprised by the use of religious demonstrations for political protests. The riots spread to a number of towns. The government used great force to suppress the riots, and officially there were 86 killed and 193 wounded. The last few days passed quietly. The regime controls the situation in both Tehran and its provinces. Lorch claimed that the anti-Israel chants by demonstrators made up a small part of the slogans. In the meantime, the anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli tone had completely disappeared. So we see right here that apparently the people of Iran were hip to what was going on and saw the Israeli influence as something that was not positive, right? Now, according to a January 3rd, 1964 report prepared by Dr. Zvi Doriel, the head of the Israeli delegation in Tehran, the internal stability and exclusive reign of the Shah achieved by the suppression of religious and other opponents of the regime in June, as well as by what the regime views as successful election season, continues without significant disturbance. The process of the disintegration of the National Front, which was a nationalist coalition that opposed the Shah, continues. So we see, again, a key part of this that keeps coming up was the nationalism was mixed with the religion. So the nationalism of the country was bolstered by the religious fervor, and this led to, of course, the eventual overthrow of the Shah. If we see here, we got a picture here with Jimmy Carter, the Shah, Mohammad Reza. Oh, okay, that's King Hussein of Jordan. I haven't seen him in so long. He been deceased for a long time, and I assume that's the Shah's wife. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. I mean, look how European did. Okay, this guy's Persian. This guy is Arab. But look how European they are in their dress, their mannerisms, the wife's jewelry. I mean, this could be a Hollywood party instead of a meeting with foreign leaders. Let's see. Brother, you got ripped off. I see Brother Roque says they also hit a recreational center. Thank you for that, brother. And brother, you got ripped off says war crime under Article 4 of the Geneva Convention. Article 4 of the 4th Geneva Convention 1949 describes the scope of protected persons as those who, during a conflict or occupation, find themselves in the hands of a party to the conflict or occupying power for which they are not nationals. The article explicitly excludes the following categories from protections: nationals of a state that is not bound by the convention. Now, here's the thing with Iran, with Israel. We don't know, and thank you for that, brother. Oh, you got some more information. Nationals of a neutral state in a belligerent territory, provided their home state has normal diplomatic relations there. Nationals of a co-belligerent state under the same diplomatic conditions. Persons already protected by the first, second, and third Geneva Conventions, wounded combatants, and prisoners of war. So here's the thing that I found. A lot of the things that, well, I put it this way, Israel is not a signatory to a lot of different things. So they get away with doing a lot of stuff because they basically say, well, we ain't signed up for that, so it doesn't apply to us. But it's still a crime. It's like me claiming not to be an American citizen, so I'm not subject to the laws of the United States of America. I mean, it sounds good, and I've seen Moors try it, but yet usually what happens is the police end up beating you over the head, smacking the feds off, and locking you up. That's what generally happens. But what happens to the U.S. to Israel, well, the U.S. and Israel, is nothing. Nothing happens because they basically say, what you gonna do about it? You know what I'm saying? And nobody's not gonna do anything about it because people don't want to have nuclear war because they think that Trump will blow up something, and they know that Israel will blow up something. Now, anyway, back to this. It says the Shah, according to Israeli reports, also leaned heavily on the ruling Iran Novan party while fostering a semblance of opposition. According to a November 25th, 1964 survey by Israel Haviv of the Middle East Department of Foreign Ministry, instead of maintaining a one-state system ruled by Iran Novan, the Shah supported the continued existence of the People's Party as a fictitious oppositional party, which would imbue parliament life in Iran with a more democratic character. So he basically set up a fake opposition. Again, this is something that we have seen. This is an Israeli tactic. I don't know if they came up with it first or he did it and they said, you know what, that's a good idea. Prime example of this is that the controversy right now going on in Israel is the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu or Benjamin Milikowski funneled millions of dollars to Hamas to keep them going when they didn't have a funding source, believing that they could help undermine the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. Hamas was started as a offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood. And so they wanted somebody to be more radical, to be a bigger bad guy, to force the PLO to make concessions, right? But as they kept funding it, what happens is once the PLO begins to look like they can't do anything, what do people do? They support the hardline people because the moderate people are too weak. And we say the same thing here. This is it's like it's right out of the same playbook. It says the Iranians can stifle any resistance. In a meeting on December 9, 1964, between Foreign Minister Abba Eban and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Aram, they later praised the relations between Israel and Iran and said that there was no other country with which Iran's relations are so close. Meanwhile, the Iranians preferred to keep the relationship quiet. Meir Ezri, an Israeli representative in Tehran, reported in a missive sent on May 5, 1965, about a meeting he held with the foreign minister in which Iran complained about the public nature of Israel's activities in the country, saying that it may harm Iran's relations, with Arab countries. Now, here's something that a lot of people get confused about. So let me clarify this. The Iranians are not Arabs. The Iranians are Persian. The culture is different. The language is different. They speak Farsi, even though they write in Arabic script. And also, this kind of helps explain the religious divide, because Iran is a Shia country. The other Gulf states and Saudi Arabia are Sunni countries, right? Because of the difference in culture and the difference in not even religion, but religious denomination is the same religion, and they both practice Islam. Because of that, there's always a how can I put it? There's always some tension between the Arab states and Iran. And now we see it now because the Arab states have backed the U.S. because of the petrodollar. So they think that the U.S. is going to protect them. And Iran is like, nah, no one can protect you from us. You in our backyard, you siding with these foreigners, which is funny because Iran used to side with these foreigners, right? But now they're like, nah, we're not having none of this. And so they pretty much just told the told the Gulf states, Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, all these countries, like, can't nobody save you. You know what I'm saying? If we want to touch you, we'll touch you, and ain't nothing that nobody can do about it. So now, I want to move forward and get to, or at least see if they get into the discussion of, because you can check out this article. This is Plus 972 magazine for anyone that's interested. I want to get to what happened right before. Here we go. It says the beginning of the end. Let's see. Let me get right before that. I see something that looks interesting. It says these relations existed at the highest level. Prime Minister Golda Meir met with the Shah in 1972. And in a May 19 report, she said that the Shah thinks that the relations and cooperation between the countries that stand against communism should be strengthened. Persia, Israel, Turkey, and Ethiopia, which that will send me down another rabbit hole, so I'm not even going. 2 years later, when Golda Meir resigned and Yitzhak Rabin took over, the new Israeli prime minister also visited Iran. According to a telegram from December 8, 1974, Rabin met with the head of Iranian security services. Now, since the beginning of the end, it was during those years that Israel began to believe that the regime was unstable. In a report prepared by the Foreign Ministry on September 11, 1972, shortly after Meir's visit to Tehran, it was noted that social unrest is manifest amongst the students and intellectuals, and the stability of the regime is maintained through policing. 4 years later, in June 1976, Israel already understood that the Shah was in trouble. Now, mind you, this is 3 years before the revolution. A telegram sent at the time by Israeli Ambassador Uri Lubrani stated that the Shah's liberalization policy, which included the assumption of powers from Savak, led to opportunistic elements that until recently had been underground or dormant, to take advantage of this and began expressing their opposition to the regime. This forced the Shah to return some of Sabak's authority in an effort to control the situation, which means that basically the secret police that was brutalizing the people, he had to put them back in effect. Ambassador Lubrani added that the feeling of many in Iran today is that the process of the Shah has begun to be quickly undermined. The status of the Shah, has begun to be quickly undermined, a process that cannot be reversed and will eventually lead to his defeat and a drastic change in the formal government in Iran. Okay, we're right about that part. It is very difficult to give a time estimate, and my personal assessment, which is not based on any objective data, is that it will take place more or less in the next 5 years. That assessment was spot on. There is no answer to the question of who or what will replace the current regime. It is reasonable to assume that the monarchy will end and that, at least in the first stage, the military officers will take its place. The big question is who will lead them and what direction will they take. As for the consequences for the state of Israel, Ambassador Lubrani wrote that the implications of a new situation for Israel-Iran relations should be that the Shah's rule be undermined or grieved. The current regime of the Shah will be seen as the most positive one for Israel and Iran. Any change in this government will, to the best of our assessment, be to the detriment of our relations with this country. Now let me stop right here. This is why part of the goal from this war, when they kept saying regime change, was to put in who? To put in the Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi, I believe that's his name. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. So all they were trying to do was put in the Shah's son, who was best buddies, the son of the man who was best buddies with Iran, and to go forward from there. So now just looking at this the little bit of history we went through, everything becomes clearer, right? Now you see all the moving parts and why everybody's doing everything. It all becomes crystal clear just from the information that we have related in the last 45 minutes or so. Before they straight black prior to brother plant-based, brother pro-black and plant-based. Now, let me see and get back to this article real quick. It says that Lubrani also states, I think that's what that's supposed to say, that Israel had extensive activities in Iran at the time, including relationships surrounding the oil supply from Iran, both to supply itself and the Eilat Ascalon pipeline, and oil sales such as security-related projects, and that the security arrangements that were recently signed created Israeli commitment to Iran vis-a-vis sensitive areas, as well as Iranian financial commitments that are significant for which is Israel's national economy. As time went on, Israel became increasingly concerned about the fate of the regime. 2 years later, August 14, 1978, Lubrani sent a telegram to the foreign ministry in Jerusalem in which he painted a bleak picture of the Shah's future. The ambassador met with Deputy Police Chief Jafari, who told Lubrani that in the short term, he does not anticipate difficulties in maintaining law and order and believes that the military regime is capable of dealing with any attempt at rebellion. On the other hand, he believes that this situation cannot continue indefinitely, and that if the government does not take far-reaching measures to change the system of governments and its priorities, the existing regime will collapse. Ja'afri, believed that the Shah was unaware of his true situation. He also criticized the head of Sabak for not introducing changes into the system that the people themselves have hated for years. Ja'afri claimed that the regime made a mistake when it used the army and caused many casualties, while noting the special relations we had with him and promised to help if necessary. A month and a half later, on September 28th, Lubrani reported at the foreign ministry that he had met with the Shah in light of the huge demonstrations that sought to oust his regime, during which the Shah reiterated his claims that the communists were responsible for the demonstrations. When the Shah asked Lubrani about the identity of his interlocutor, Lubrani answered that
On political matters, I have always acted, if not in tandem with the head of Sabah, then through the royal court ministry of Tufani. The Ronnie summarized the meeting. I have a difficult impression of the man. He is not the man we were familiar with. He was distant and sometimes stares. There's no doubt the man has gone through a nightmare from which he has yet to recover. He is full of terror and uncertain of the future. The most worrisome aspect is the sense that he seems to have made peace with his fate without having found any strong desire to take matters into his own hands and change it. I will add that it is possible that I found the Shah in a temporary moment of Israel did not want to lose its stronghold on Iran under any circumstances. If the Shah was to be deposed, Iran hoped that a military regime would take its place. In a telegram from December 30th, 1978, the Director of Middle East Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Yael Verit, writes that the best option for the state of Israel is extreme toughness by the military and the establishment of a military regime and a real military government, whether initiated by the military in the form of a military coup, or with the Shah through tacit consent on his part. So literally, Israel just wanted the most brutal, harsh people to take over, as long as it benefited them. So they didn't care about democracy, any of that stuff, all of that. Nobody cares about that, right? It says on January 4th, 1979, in the last-ditch attempt to bring calm to the streets of the country, the Shah appointed Shapur Bakhtiar as prime minister. Israel, however, had no illusions about his ability to govern. 4 days later, Verit sent a telegram to Israeli missions around the world saying that Bakhtiar's government had no public support and was in danger of collapsing. Verit wrote that the Shah and Bakhtiar had reached an understanding about the Shah going on holiday leave, but the length of time and who would decide on his return remains a question. It may lead to a crisis in the future. The Shah continues to symbolize the unity of Iran and the loyalty of the army to him, even today, and despite the number of cracks is supported. Verit estimated that if Khomeini and his supporters took power, relations with Israel would come to an end. Yet she maintained hope that the army would take over and that Iran would see another form of government like the current one or a more convenient army. And it's likely that the president of Israel will initially continue under a lower profile. Verit's hopes did not come to fruition, and on January 16th, the Shah fled Iran. On February 11th, about a week after Khomeini returned from exile to Iran, the Israeli government decided to evacuate its remaining representatives in Tehran, especially Ambassador Youssef Harmelin, while at the same time examining the possibility of leaving his Israeli representative so as not to completely sever ties with the new regime. The foreign minister instructed the Director General, after the Mossad announced the evacuation of our people, to examine the possibility of leaving a person in a diplomatic appointment so as not to cut the wire, the cable said. There will be no official announcement of leaving. If Harmelin leaves, he will be in danger should he be in prison due to the fact that he was the former head of Shin Bet. Brother, you got ripped off. Are you still listening? But I cannot remember. But give me the official definition of what Shin Bet is in Israel, what they're in charge of. I thought it was one of their intelligence services, but I can't remember for sure. Says the masses can bring down a regime with tanks. Yet Israel still held out hope for the new regime. 3 days later, Foreign Minister Moshe Dayan met with the Japanese ambassador to Israel. A report sent to the Israeli embassy in Tokyo shows Dayan told the diplomat the current stage in Iran is not final and is a transition into a new period. There is concern that the influence of extreme leftists will grow. And in addition to the religious sea change, xenophobia is also spread. Yet according to Dayan, Iran will still need foreigners to operate its sophisticated weaponry, especially after the Americans had left. Minister Dayan further expressed his concern for the fate of the Jewish community in Iran, arguing that one must worry about the influence of the events in Iran on other countries in the area like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Sudan, and Morocco. who also do not respect civil rights. Israel talking about civil rights is hilarious. But anyway, let's move forward. On the same day that Dayan spoke with U.S. Secretary of Defense Harold Brown, who, according to the protocol, told the Israeli minister that the United States does not feel guilt about what happened to the Shah, since the Shah failed to maintain a managerial class below him that would shoulder some of the responsibility, and if everything in the country was in his hands, that his mistakes were his alone. There was also the problem of corruption. The revolution in Iran had reached the masses. There's a strong sense of nationalism. What was Malcolm X talking about all this time? He was talking about nationalism. And we see how nationalism can change the tide in the political destiny of a country and of a people. He says one can hope that the Iranians will understand the main factors in their national interest and act accordingly. But beyond concerns about the loss of Israel's outposts in Iran, Israel had no less serious concerns. The fear that the masses in the Middle East would imitate the Iranians, overthrow their regimes. According to the minutes of a meeting of Deputy Directors General held the same day Dayan spoke with Brown. Pinchas Eliav, Director of Political Research at the Foreign Ministry, said that the serious issue is the social, economic, public character of the upheaval proof that the street and the masses could bring down a regime with tanks, the most modern weaponry, and the Air Force. So basically what he's saying is it doesn't matter how strong the military is, the people can overthrow the government if they will it, which is something that people should remember. All these forces stood before a street that is nevertheless a street. Perhaps Khomeini had some agents and some communist intervention, incitement and ideology, and the masses succeeded in overthrowing the regime. This is, in my opinion, a harbinger of danger to all the regimes in the region, including the radical ones. Neither Israel nor the United States have ever taken responsibility for their continued support of the dictatorship and their support for the Shah in crushing the left and aggressive elements in Iran. Their conduct was instrumental in the establishment of the rise of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. All right. Before to Brother Tony. So we see from these two articles that the United States was instrumental in maintaining a brutal dictatorship, and Israel was greatly benefiting from that dictatorship. And when that dictatorship was finally swept away, when the Iranian Revolution happened and the overthrow of the Shah and the establishment of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and what now is the current government, the U.S. and Israel lost, but they were backing people who were doing brutal, barbaric, and savage things. It's just a fact. So what I'm gonna do right now is we're at the top of the hour. Take a commercial break, and we'll be back shortly.
I'm Russell Lewis. I'm a licensed insurance agent. I'm an independent agent, and I represent a plethora of different insurance carriers, and I offer a variety of insurance products and insurance services, including...
Everyone, my name is Elijah Lewis.
Motorcycle, boat, general contractors insurance, long-term care, life.
You've probably heard this line before.
Motorcycle.
All right. Well, we are having some technical difficulties with our files. We do not have visuals. So what I'll do, want to play, since I don't have that,
And my apologies to our sponsors. I will have to add their video to, or add their commercial to another video, because I don't know why we don't have visual. I do want to talk about the fact that for the last 30 plus years, Benjamin Netanyahu, so almost, man, let's say they said 33 years, which would be what, 1992? That Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying that the United States, that Israel is about to develop a bomb. Now we see the history that Israel has been intimately involved in the corrupt and brutal regime that preceded the Ayatollah and the theocratic. They have a constitutional theocracy. That's what Iran has. That before the constitutional theocracy, we see that Israel was intimately involved in the affairs of Iran. And since that happened, right? A decade after that happened, Benjamin Netanyahu has been accusing Iran of having a nuclear bomb or pursuing a nuclear bomb or being 5 minutes away from a nuclear bomb and any other lie that he came up with. So I found this clip and I wanted to play this real quick so you can see how long he's been saying this. And yet somehow the United States under Donald Trump comes along and believes this lie. And this is why the United States is in what is increasingly becoming a quagmire at best. All right, so check this video out.
Iran has never given up its quest for nuclear weapons and the missiles to deliver them.
That's because Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying this for more than 30 years, claiming Iran is close to having
nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons. Atomic bombs.
In 1992, as a member of parliament, Netanyahu addresses the Knesset. He says, within 3 to 5 years, we can assume that Iran will become autonomous in its ability to develop and produce a nuclear bomb. 3 years later, in his book Fighting Terrorism, he repeats the same time frame, 3 to 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Fast forward to 2002. Netanyahu testifies before a U.S. congressional committee actively calling for the invasion of Iraq.
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The two nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran.
The invasion happens months later. No weapons of mass destruction are found in Iraq. This is a fragment of a 2009 U.S. State Department cable released by WikiLeaks. Netanyahu tells members of Congress that Iran is 1 or 2 years away from being capable of developing nuclear weapons.
They're online.
It's 2012, and Netanyahu is holding up his infamous cartoon bomb at the UN General Assembly.
By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb.
And now, 33 years after Netanyahu's first so-called imminent warning, Israel attacks Iran.
And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year.
That's despite the U.S. Director of National Intelligence saying Iran isn't building a nuclear weapon months earlier.
Iran lied.
But for Netanyahu,
Big time.
the slogan has been the same for decades. Dmitry Medvedenko, Al Jazeera.
So we see that I mean, I'm gonna just say this. As I told y'all before, the great reformer Martin Luther wrote a book called Of the Jews and Their Lies. This is a prime example. Just incessantly lying over and over and repeating a lie over and over. And I guess assuming that if you tell a lie long enough, someone will believe it. I guess that's how this works. I'm not sure, but we see that this lie has been told over and over and over incessantly, going all the way back to the war in Iraq, right? Now, mind you, I have to say this: the United States was arming Saddam Hussein to make war with Iran, which was the impetus for them coming up with their missile program, because they never wanted to be in a position where they would be defenseless again, because they gave the United States, and I think Israel had a hand in it too, but I can't remember for sure, but I know the United States for a fact gave Saddam Hussein the chemicals that were the precursor to the chemical weapons that it used against Iran and against the Kurds. Excuse me. And then they turn around and claim that he had weapons of mass destruction. The only weapons of mass destruction he had were the weapons that they gave him, right? So it just goes to show the tricks and lies that both regimes, the Israeli regime, the American regime, engaged in and caused all types of confusion. And let's see. Brother Tony says, and this war criminal still walks free. Yeah. I mean, he's wherever he is, because that's a topic of discussion for a whole nother day, where he is. And Brother Raka says he says Anton Chigurh, villain Ashkenazi Milikowski. Right. I mean, just running around, just wrecking people and just causing confusion all around. Now, let me see. Now, this was interesting. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but I don't know if many people know this, but because I want this to lead into something else. The Reagan, I can't even say the Reagan administration, Reagan and his people that would become his cabinet, so the people that were surrounding him. I know many people have heard this, but I want to bring this up again. When the Iran hostage situation took place, right, which was in 1979, the overthrow of the government, then they stormed the U.S. embassy and they took hostages, right? When that took place, Jimmy Carter tried for basically over a year, right? Because that was 79. So all the rest of 79, 80, up until really the day that the day before the inauguration of Ronald Reagan, he kept trying to get the hostages free. Well, that was one of the reasons, along with the oil and everything. That's why he lost. Right? You also had the oil embargoes. He had lines of people lined up for oil back in the 70s. I've seen the pictures, fortunately, I don't remember that, but I saw the pictures. But Ronald Reagan negotiated with Iran to keep the hostages until after the election, right? So the election was in November. They made this deal in October. So I'm gonna get into this for a little bit. It says in the past, I believe in the October surprise, President Jimmy Carter made it illegal to give weapons to Iran after the hostages were captured. But Reagan's people gave Iran arms through Israel even before Reagan became president. The hostages were released right after Ronald Reagan was sworn into the presidency
minutes after he took the oath of office. If the hostages had come home while Carter was still president, he might have been reelected. Now, I want to tell you how big a deal this was. This changes the entire history, right? But the idea, think about it, because everyone forgets this. Ronald Wilson Reagan was an actor where? He was an actor in America, which means he worked for Hollywood, and Hollywood is controlled by whom? So that's how he has the connections to make a deal and work with Israel, which is a nation of people who control Hollywood, right? They're the same people, right? And this allowed him to win the election. And the reason black people should be infuriated by this, right, is because later on, after setting the precedent of giving weapons to Iran, later on, that connection between Iran and America would go on to become the Iran-Contra scandal, because money would be funded to the Contras, and then the Contras would come to America, would send representatives to America to sell drugs, because we know that Freeway Ricky Ross's connect with Danilo Blandone, who was a representative of the Contras. So the whole crack cocaine thing comes in because Reagan was doing double dealing under the table with the Iranians before he ever came into office. But who did he do it through? He did it through Israel. So Israel, whether tangentially or even more nefariously closer to the situation, helped spur the crack cocaine epidemic in America through all these connections, through Reagan, I can't think of the name, Colonel Oliver North, and all of that, right? So this is history that many of our people largely forget or don't know, really. Now, I don't think most people know. How many people, and I know my audience is way more in tune with what's going on in the world than the standard person, but how many of y'all knew about the Israeli connection? Well, first of all, how many people remember the October surprise that Reagan asked them to hold the hostages, and how many people knew the Israeli connection and all of that? If you knew all that information, you put a 1 in the chat. So that's the October surprise. I'm not gonna go deep into it. I'm just gonna read maybe the next article. It says, I believe the story of the surprise when I read Gary 6, 1991 op-ed in the New York Times, the election story of the decade. I asked my family for a copy of November 1991 book, October Surprise, America's Hostages in Iran and the Election of Ronald Reagan for Christmas. Honestly, my family didn't want to hear me complain about it, so I kept my mouth shut as I read the book in the back room. Zick, who was Carter's national security advisor and an expert on Iran, told us back then that the Reagan-Bush campaign maneuvered to keep the U.S. hostages in Iran after Reagan was elected. The hostages should have been released as Jimmy Carter did everything he could to set them free. But Carter could not defeat Reagan's brilliant campaign manager, William Casey. Casey had Office of Strategic Services spy experience from World War II. He kept his international contacts in place after that. He knew how to get the deal done that he wanted. He wanted Reagan elected and Carter dismissed. Now, let me not sit up here and don't be confused that I think Jimmy Carter was a good guy. But what I'm saying is the open attack on black people through there were all types of policies that Reagan had that attacked black people openly. And then the other undercover one with the Iran-Contra thing was subtly. It's possible that we don't get attacked that way because the fact of the matter is that Carter wouldn't have been dealing with the Iranians the same way. And who knows what would have taken place as far as the whole Contra situation. I don't know what Carter would have done, right? Brother Jarrah brings up Reaganomics, right? The current situation of the massive debt that we are now in was partially set up by the fact of the massive tax cuts that Ronald Reagan put in place, that seemingly everyone else after him followed behind, and no one has reversed. And again, George Bush Sr., who at the time, he's a former CIA person, so I'm sure he has some help in doing this deal. George Bush Sr., when he was running against Reagan, called Reagan's economic policies voodoo economics, what they call supply side economics, which man, and I just was about to say the man's name, and now I'm drawing a blank. Who he got this idea from? Brother Jarrah or brother, you got ripped off. Either one of you are there. Can you find the economist who came up with the supply side economic theory? I am drawing a complete blank. But anyway, everything that Reagan implemented and everything, the economic policies, the Iran-Contra, all of that stuff that affected Black people, the rolling back of civil rights, and just all of these things, the cutting of government programs, and just all the stuff that he did from 81 to 89, right? Even after he started getting senile, and they pretty much carried out the same policy. All that stuff came because Israel helped to, it basically derailed the Carter presidency and give weapons to Iran. And then later on, they became Iran an enemy. Okay, brother. Okay, that's the term. Yeah, but I'm saying, man, if you can find out who came up with supply side economic theory, because and I can't think of the guy's name. I'm frustrated because I literally had it on the tip of my tongue. I was getting ready to say it. I veered off course for a second, and now, of course, I totally can't remember. Anyway, so that is that, and that connects to us. Now, let's see. What is this? Okay, now here we go. I said that tangentially comes to this, right? So let's get into this, because this directly affects Black people, which most of our audience is mostly Black, except when we talk about certain topics that other people show up. Says what we really know about the CIA and crack. Now, here's what we really know. What we really know is what Gary Webb put in his book. Gary Webb's book is very much detailed and documented the entire situation. No one could ever debunk what he put in there. Make no mistake. And in fact, I've shown a video of man, I cannot think of the guy's name, but I showed a video of a former police officer in California saying that he was approached by the agency, which means the CIA, to help protect their drug operation. Bringing drugs into America. So, this is not quote unquote conspiracy theory. This is documented, but everybody seems to forget. Like it's some type of, it's like it's a weird spell on Americans where they can't remember history. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it works. I just know that when I talk about stuff, everybody looks at me like I'm crazy, and they're shocked. And how do you remember this stuff? And sometimes they like, man, you weren't even around. How you know that? And I just look at people and I'm just like, I read. That's the secret. Ain't no magic. I read. And I've been reading for my whole life, basically. You know what I'm saying? Started off, that was part of my punishment was to read when I did something wrong. And it became a lifelong habit. And now I see why it's so important, because if you do not read and you do not retain the information and you do not give it to people and you do not document it, in the modern world, they just, it's almost like Men in Black. They just act like the stuff never happened. And nobody remembers and nobody knows anything.
So somebody has to document this stuff, and somebody has to tell the people. It's insane how this works. Brother, you got ripped off. You got jokes, except he's not joking. He says, can't be FBA if you read. Hey, man. Hey, it is what it is. Brother Tony says reading is the key, but most people will not pick up a book. I'm gonna be honest. We used to always say, "Oh man, black people don't read." I'm gonna be honest. Americans don't read. America is quickly becoming the land of illiteracy because they and we talked about this previously, but these college professors, man, I went down a rabbit hole of these college professors and these high school teachers, and they said people can't complete sentences, people can't read the word. Like the young people who are coming up are struggling mightily with basic grammar and reading and comprehension. Like they're fighting for their lives at these institutions, and these people that have been there a long time, they're sounding their alarm. They're like, hey man, in essence, idiocracy is becoming true. Roger Rocky says reading is fundamental. Yeah, that's how we grew up. That was part of like our Saturday morning cartoons. They had, I don't know if y'all remember, I'm a Bill, I'm only a Bill, with the little Bill animation and all that. With I think that was Scatman Crothers voicing it. Like this was foundational. Like they put education in your cartoons, and now you got Roblox with weird people on it trying to seduce your children. So, as I always say, I get tired of saying it, but everything's worse. You know what I'm saying? Like everything is worse. So let me get to this article real quick so I can get ready to close out. I only got maybe about 20 minutes left. Brother Chirake says the slogan "Reading is Fundamental" originated from Reading is Fundamental RIF, a nonprofit organization founded in 1966 by Margaret McNamara. By the way, I've just been going on and on for almost 90 minutes. I'm your host, DC Radical One. Welcome to the center. You can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical1, on Twitter at dcradical_ONE, on OTW2 at dcradical1. If you find value in the information that we are presenting, you can donate with the Cashapp $DC_Radical1, or via Zelle at straightblackpride_DC at protonmail.com. Also, you can email me at that same address, straightblackpride_DC at protonmail.com. All of the information that I've just stated is running at the bottom of the page. Now, back to this article quickly. It says the CIA claimed that any story linking it to the 1980s crack cocaine explosion was conspiratorial slander, but the evidence of its complicity is all there in the congressional record. And this is from this source is the Jacobin, weirdly enough. The CIA thought it had buried a sordid story with the death of San Jose Mercury News reporter Gary Webb. In other words, let's just be honest. Gary Webb allegedly shot himself 2 times, not once, but 2 times, in the back of the head. Do with that information what you will. Now, back to this. Webb has spent years documenting the crack cocaine trade in the United States and the intelligence agency's complicity in it. Webb took his own life in 2004 after his 1996 Dark Alliance reporting series came under intense scrutiny from the heavy hitters of American journalism, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Los Angeles Times. Now, all 3 of these sources have both Israeli and CIA intelligence officers working there, controlling the flow of information. Yeah, I mean, look, man. You heard what I said. Unfortunately for U.S. intelligence chiefs, the accusations made by Webb and other journalists have continued to flare up in popular culture when the opportunity to combine two movie archetypes, the spook and the gangster, seem irresistible. Hollywood films like 2014's Webb biopic Kill the Messenger, right? And 2017's American Made with Tom Cruise as CIA pilot Barry Seal have helped keep the allegations in public consciousness. And let us not forget that William Jefferson Clinton was the governor of Arkansas when Mena, Arkansas was a site where people like Barry Seal came and landed there, brought their product there, and distributed it from there, and that there were some young boys killed in that area who had allegedly witnessed transfer of illicit drugs, right? So all of that information is available. In fact, they got documentaries on YouTube on this. Now, in the same year that Kill the Messenger came out, the Central Intelligence Agency released a previously classified 1997 article from its House Journal titled Managing a Nightmare, CIA Public Affairs and the Drug Conspiracy Story. Its author, Nicholas Dumachik, described the controversy as a symptom of escalating public distrust in the government. Hey, man, just call it people waking up. Because if you don't have public distrust in the government by now, you either sleep or stupid. Now, I don't know what else to tell you. I ain't trying to be disrespectful, but man, I gotta call it like I see it. Now, its author described the controversy as a symptom of escalating public distrust in the government, with the CIA as an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire, and such times even fantastic allegations that the CIA, JFK's assassination, UFO cover-ups, or importing drugs into American cities will resonate with and even appeal to much of the American society. Now, here's what's interesting. In 1997, they came up with that. 2001, no one cares about any of this stuff because what happens? 9/11 happens, right? So the CIA gets to just skate free because 9/11 happens, changes the whole world. The Patriot Act comes into effect, and everybody forgets about the CIA bringing in drugs. Now, it says, according to Dumachik, the Dark Alliance affair had now largely run its course, leaving intelligence agents to bemoan the scant public appreciation for their dedication and hard work among the U.S. Citizenry. It says, ultimately, the CIA drug story says a lot more about American society on the eve of the millennium than it does about either the CIA or the media. We live in a somewhat coarse and emotional times when large numbers of Americans do not adhere to the same standards of logic, evidence, and even civil discourse. This is, bruh, he basically saying the people are base and gauche and don't know how to carry themselves in this, and they're dumb. He's saying people are dumb for believing documented information. I believe there were exceptions to this rule. Dumachik credit a ground base of already productive relations with journalists, meaning that journalists are paid off, with helping prevent the story from becoming an unmitigated disaster. As the agency got its version of events across, in the first few days, the CIA media spokesman will remind reporters seeking comment that the series represented no real news, and that similar charges were made in the 1980s and were investigated by Congress and were found to be without substance. The Kerry report. We remember John Kerry. Although he did not mention it by name, Dumachik can only be referring to a report published in 1989 by Massachusetts Senator John Kerry and his team after an investigation by the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs. If the CIA really considers the Kerry report an exoneration of its record, it's hard to know what it might view as an indictment. While Kerry did not find evidence that CIA bosses had deliberately orchestrated the sale of drugs in U.S. cities, his conclusions were well damning. He says, it is clear that individuals who provided support for the Contras were involved in drug trafficking. Hello? The support network of the Contras was used by drug trafficking organizations, and elements of the Contras themselves were knowingly received financial and material assistance from drug traffickers. In each case, one
or another agency of the United States government had information regarding the involvement either while it was occurring or immediately thereafter. The report quoted testimony from the head of the CIA's Central American Task Force, Alan Fears, about links between the Contras and drug smuggling, says it is not a couple of people, it is a lot of people. Referring to one high-profile Contra leader, Idan Pastora, Fears was equally candid. We know that everyone around Pastora was involved in cocaine. So the idea that they didn't know, pure shenanigans. The pattern of complicity did not begin or end in Langley. Justice Department officials still denying the allegations in 1986. The report notes, even though the FBI had significant information regarding the involvement of narcotics traffickers in Contra operations in its possession by that point. For its part, the State Department has selected 4 companies owned and operated by narcotics traffickers to supply humanitarian aid to the Contras. It was still doing business with one firm, Diasa, 6 months after its principals were indicted for cocaine, smuggling, and money laundering. Right-wing Cuban exiles with strong ties to the U.S. government, especially the CIA, have been heavily involved in supporting the Contras. Their help, which included supplies and training, was funded in part with drug money. Fears committee found that the largest Contra group, the Nicaraguan Democratic Force, did move Contra funds through a narcotics trafficking enterprise and money laundering operation. This kind of activity was an open secret in government circles. Reagan administration official Oliver North's diary was heavily redacted during the Iran-Contra hearings, but it still contained entries like Honduran DC-6, which is being used for runs out of New Orleans, is probably being used for drug runs into the U.S. From August 1985, the Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega also benefited from Washington's indulgence. As the report turns out, each government agency which had a relationship with Noriega turned a blind eye to his corruption and drug dealing, even as he was emerging as a key player on behalf of the Medellin cartel. Let's stop right here, brothers and sisters. The corruption, the destruction brought to the doors of Black America through the CIA drug running operation or protection of drug operations. The whole Iran-Contra thing, it really, if you dig into it and you haven't dug into it, it really boggles your mind. And yet, when you dig into all this stuff, it's always wild that you somehow, Israel finds their way into stuff that you don't even think is possible for them to have any connection with, but they have connection directly with this. And I wouldn't be surprised if they had some type of connection directly with the drug operation, because people like John Kiriakis and others have talked about how the CIA had Mossad moles in it for who knows how long, right? So let me just say this. We think that these things don't affect us, and we think it's not necessary to know about international politics, and we think that the government is going to protect us. The government is not going to protect you. The government will do whatever the government needs to do to maintain and achieve their objectives, and however many Americans have to be sacrificed, whether they're Black in this case, or in the case of the fentanyl and all this other stuff, the Oxycontin and all this stuff, whoever's going to get sacrificed to maintain quote unquote national security or whatever other objectives that they want to talk about, that's what they're going to do. Whoever has to be sacrificed, whoever has to be removed from the planet, whoever has to be poisoned, or whatever the case may be. And the money goes to under the table to whoever, right? And so many people are made rich, and I mean, we don't even know the extent of this stuff. Brother Tony says Noriega got jailed to tie up his hands. Indeed. Right? So this we have to get over this the illusion that we have friends. And I was talking to a brother, and we were talking about America and the who built America and this and that. And I just told him, man, that right now what we're looking at really is a bad investment. The investment has gone bad. Integration that failed. Our people are in disarray. Our communities have been destroyed. We've been under assault from psychological warfare through music, through social media, through movies, you name it. We're destroying ourselves with interracialism. We have virtually no economic power because the money is given to people who not only don't care about black people, but even if they did, don't have the know-how to be able to build an economic infrastructure. Of course, our family situation is totally destroyed, and I can go on and on ad nauseum. The reality of the situation is, black people in America are going to have to pick a side. And as things are going to become more difficult, because as we know, the Iranians have decided that they will attack America economically to force them to abandon this war. And that is taking place now. You all who depending on where you all who drive, here in DC, the price of gas has gone up 20 cents in the last 2 weeks, 10 cents per week, right? At least some places, I mean, that's the minimum, right? Some places it's 30 and 40, but at least 20, that's in the city, right? I'm sure in places like New York is more, California is even more. California always, their price of gas is crazy on a good day. Fertilizer, there's a fertilizer shortage, which I don't think has been brought up enough, right? Because of Israel's attack on Qatar's liquid gas line, right? Roger Rocket say filled up today, 10 cents per gallon up from last time, right? So that liquid natural gas they call LNG, that pipeline was attacked by Israel and Qatar because it connects with the pipeline in Iran, and thus that helps. They use that to make fertilizer, which of course is needed to grow crops. Thus, my brother said Toronto $6 a gallon, man, or more, right? So, hey, America's still doing good. So this is an outgrowth, of course, of this war, which Netanyahu baited Trump into. And things are going to get worse. This is only the beginning. And I meant to bring up the article with Iran and how and I'll just talk about it real quick, but Iran, during the hostage crisis, they let the black hostages go. And the women hostages, he said, because the black people are oppressed and because women are supposed to be respected in Islam according to the Quran and the Sunnah. Right? And they also have, they consider Minister Malcolm X a martyr, and they have honored him with a stamp. And I don't know if y'all seen this, and I don't have it. I had it on Instagram. They have a new propaganda video, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know who they have in charge of their AI and their propaganda, but Iran is winning the propaganda war on social media. They have a video, and I don't know what it's called, but in the video they use Lego characters, and they talk about slavery, and they talk about stealing the land from the Native Americans, and they talk about Epstein victims, and they show like other countries that have been colonized, and then they have missiles, and they have a message on these missiles for, in honor of all these people. And like for the black one, it says for something like for the memory of Malcolm X or something like that, right? And so they have the black Lego characters fire their missiles, and the Asian, the Native American artists fire their missiles. Tremendous propaganda. It's tremendous propaganda, right? And they have taken the moral high ground because they're saying we're fighting against the Epstein class. Like, let's not forget. And we talked about the Epstein stuff 3-4 years ago, back in 2022. But I think that's when we first started talking about it. Let's not forget, Epstein was a Mossad agent. So every time Israel bombs a Mossad building and bombs a Mossad bunker, and bombs a Mossad headquarters and bombs the Mossad office, they're bombing an area where a child trafficking operation took place, or was conceived, or was what's the word I'm looking for? If nothing else was given the go ahead. That's what they're bombing, right? So every time they bomb something in Israel, that's what they're bombing. And every time they bomb a U.S. base over there in Qatar and Bahrain and Dubai and all those places, remember what goes on there. Black women go over there to get, get bodily fluids and stuff poured and dumped on them for money. Whether black women from Africa or black women from America. That's what goes on in those places. That's what those Arab princes and so forth and so on do to black women. So if you want to ask me, hey, DC, why you seem to be supporting Iran? Because they fight evil. That's why. They're fighting evil. They're doing what no one else wants to do. And the evil was brought to their doorstep. They have a choice. But they stood up like men. And they even have their women fighting. Right? They're giving an example of what people need to be doing. They're giving an example of what the black man needs to be doing. The black man needs to be fighting against evil. The black man needs to be fighting against pedophilia. The black man needs to be fighting against misuse and brutality against our women. The black man needs to be fighting against Zionism. The black man needs to be fighting against all of these atrocities, right? Not fighting against each other, but fighting against our enemies. But we don't want to do that because we're cowards. I don't have no other explanation. You see black people sitting around getting mad that Ghana, and look, I got my problems with Ghana right now. Make no mistake. But Ghana said, hey, man, let's vote and say that slavery was the worst atrocity in history. And black people in America mad that Ghana said it. They're not really mad that America voted against it. Like, nah, we ain't gonna do that. I've seen this, and I'm assuming these are FBA people. So, brothers and sisters, I'm gonna get ready to close this out. I just want to say this. Look, when my enemy is winning a battle, or is losing a battle, I should say, I'm going to root for whoever's beating up my enemy. And one thing black people have to understand, for sure, we have enemies. This is just the reality of the situation that a lot of black people don't want to accept. But black people have enemies. And our enemies aren't overseas somewhere, in some country that you've never been in, that you don't know where it is, that you can't name, and so forth and so on. Our enemies are very close to us. I'm just going to say that. They're very close to us. And so, with that, brothers and sisters,
I thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share this with people who want to be educated and not just entertained. People who don't mind reading a book. And people that don't mind learning new information. With that, I say, BB48 and straight black pride.
Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also follow us on our other social media platforms. On Instagram, we're at dc.radical1. On Twitter, we're at dc_radical_ONE. And the Cash App is $DC Radical1. Again, thank you for subscribing. A BB for ODA and straight black pride.